COVID. And so with that, without further ado, please welcome our board president, Mackenzie Bishop.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. I will make sure that gets factored into your bonus, the very kind words you said about me. But yeah, I'd like to extend and continue the thank yous. First to NAIOP for hosting this event. They host us every year. We're always excited to tell the story about what's going on the residential side of the business. And obviously, everybody on here knows that rooftops lead to office demand, lead to commercial demand. So it's certainly a leading indicator, and we're excited to share our perspective. New this year is we have some GAR panelists as well. We have some representation from the resale community, and we're excited to hear about their perspective because I think it dovetails quite a bit with what's going on the new home side. And I think what's great about not only having NAIOP here and the Home Builders Association, but having GARs, I think it shows an unprecedented level of cooperation and partnership in our industry, which I think right now is a pretty galvanizing, unprecedented time. And it's exciting to have everybody around the table to talk about this exciting stuff that's going on. I'd also like to thank the viewers. I know it's just another Zoom. Everybody has Zoom fatigue right now. We're very thankful that you guys are here to learn more about what's going on in our business and in our industry, and putting this on your calendar this morning. And lastly, I'll tell you a little bit more about our panelists soon, but it's exciting to have and be surrounded by such talent and such knowledge when it comes to our industry. And I know that you're going to get a lot of incredible information from our group of panelists, and I'll be introducing you guys to them here momentarily. When I think back a year of where we were a year ago, we were in person at the Sheraton for this event, and I think that may have been one of the last in-person events before COVID happened. And when I think back to what we talked about last year when COVID was a problem over in Asia, it wasn't really on our shores yet, or at least that we knew about. And we were giving our prognostications about what was going on in a normal housing cycle. To see how things have shifted since the onset of COVID and the pandemic response, and how buyers have been fleeing and really valuing what their home environment is, because home is different now. It's not just a place where you lay your head and maybe eat dinner a couple nights a week. It's where you prepare for your dinner. It's where you send your kids to school. It's where you do your work if you're fortunate enough to work from home. Home has become a completely different environment and a completely different value for the individuals and for the residents out there. So with that, I think that's driven a lot of the demand shifts and a lot of the dynamics that are happening in the market. So it's been an unbelievable year. When I saw the title of this, we didn't have a whole lot of input in it, but I thought it was great because the vaccine analogy is perfect. I think we as an industry, we're excited about things opening up. We were deemed essential early on, so we really never skipped a beat, which we're really fortunate for that to happen. But like the vaccine for COVID, there are some side effects that are inherent in those. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those side effects, not only from an industry and supply chain perspective, but also from a human experience perspective, which we're really excited to get those perspectives, especially from the realtors on the panel. So with that being said, I'll briefly introduce our panelists, and they're going to tell you more about what they know than I'll ever be able to say, but I'll go one by one, starting, John, how do you want to do this?
To your left.
All right, I'll go to my left. Our first representative from the Home Builders Association, my first vice president, better known as the person who's going to have my job next year, which is awesome. I can't wait for that. Janice Eads with Westway Homes. She's the director of operations. Did I get that title right?
You sure did.
And she is a superwoman when it comes to home building. She knows more than I'll ever know, and she's probably forgotten more than I'll ever know about what it takes to build a home, what goes into the process, and really running the operations from soup to nuts when it comes to building a home in the Albuquerque area. So delighted to have Janice here to share her perspective. Next, we've got Carrie Plant, who is, what's your official title?
I do everything.
Vice President of AMREP Southwest, jack of all trades, master of all. We're excited to have her as well. She is the second vice president, which means she'll have my job in 2 years. So I'm really excited to have both of them here. And she's going to bring a unique perspective about what's going on the land development and on the lot supply side of our business, which, as you'll learn, is a very, very key part of the future and what's going to be going on with our industry in the years ahead. So going to my right, hi. Our first representative that I'd like to highlight from the Realtor Association is Kathy Colvin, who is currently the president of the Southwest MLS board, correct?
Right.
Which is, we're going to talk a lot about MLS statistics today. Kathy's an accomplished realtor. I think the list of things that you've done is probably, we couldn't fit it all in a 2-minute bio. We couldn't fit it all in a 20-minute bio. So we're delighted to have Kathy here for her to share her perspective and her expertise.
Thank you.
Yeah, our next panelist from GAR is Belinda Franco, who is the current president of the GAR board. Belinda is also an accomplished realtor, represents both buyers and sellers, and we're really excited to learn about her unique perspective and what it's been like to buy and sell homes and the buyer experience and the seller experience from a human level during her part of the presentation. So delighted to have you.
Glad to be here.
And our last panelist, last but not least, Tigo, whose official title, he wanted me to call him realtor. His unofficial title is housing market blogger, vlogger, podcaster extraordinaire on Facebook. So Tigo's going to be sharing a lot about the data behind what's going on in this insane market. So we're delighted to have him. And I think everybody knows Tigo out there. So without further ado, just a little bit of ground rules in terms of format. We're going to have a prepared presentation here at the beginning. Every panelist is going to share, certain prepared slides and different information that they wanted to get out there. We are going to have a very lengthy Q&A at the end. So this is intended to be an interactive process, an interactive call. So if you have specific questions that we maybe don't touch on, or that you'd like additional depth in terms of coverage, or to go a little bit more in depth, or to get different panelists' perspective on certain things that you're curious about, hit that chat button so that you let us know what your questions are, and we'll get to as many as we can, if not all of them. So excited to get us started. And with that, Mr. Venturi, take it away.
All right. Well, I am, I remember sitting at this presentation last year at the Sheraton going, wow, this is such great knowledge for us in the resale community, Mr. Garcia. It's
Yes.
not used homes, it's the resale homes. I know. I just got to poke you on that one. And learn so much about what the builders are dealing with. So we really appreciate this this presentation. Oh, see, now you're got that chair back up, John.
You're just too tall.
Yeah, we'll get it right. Okay. What I'm going to talk about is just some of the numbers, or there's so many numbers to look at. I just wanted to give everybody a really high level of what happened through the MLS here locally, basically the regional area with home sales. It was, needless to say, a very strong year. I'm going to pull up that next slide, John. So I just threw some numbers out here, just some big pictures. So in Albuquerque, in the greater Albuquerque area, we have 14,904 homes sold through our MLS. That is a record year. We've never had that many homes sell. Last year, 2019, was also a record year. It beat out 2006 as the previous record year. So it was kind of interesting. So through all of this, we increased the number of homes sold by 8.5%, which, again, if you would have said that back in March, April, we're going to have an increase in home sales, everybody would have said you're crazy, right? But now here we are. The other number there on the right, upper right there, is the dollar volume of homes sold through our MLS, over 4 billion. And so it's a big number. The next number below that, the 1,704 million, that is the estimated impact that home sales had on our local economy. That number comes from a study that National Association, our association, does every year, National Association of Realtors. They look at how much economic impact do we have when a home sells. And they came up with $72,000. Kathy's going to go into that a little bit more. So that's where that, so for all the homes sold, we had over $1 billion in economic impact flowing into our local economy with residential home sales. Average sale price up to $286,000. Again, that's almost a 10% increase. We're seeing about a 10% increase year over year across the board. That's on median, average, and average price per square foot. And interesting thing, even with the increase in home sales, the decrease in the number of homes available on the market, it's down 40% versus 2019. And that's really the big story right now everybody's going to talk about is short supply. Jump to the next slide and just give you a couple things that are happening right now. Days on market is a big story. Right now, average days on market is 21 days. But I wanted to give a look at it a different way. Of the homes that come on the market, 50% of them are selling within 6 days. Go back a year ago, it was 30% of the homes were selling within 6 days, basically immediately. And so the speed at which homes are turning over is much faster. Currently, as we sit here today, there are 680 homes for sale in the greater Albuquerque area. To put that in perspective, back in 2008-9, when things really spiked up, I think we were up to about 8,000 homes on the market. So we're at an all-time low, 0.6 months supply of homes available for sale. And there's just one other stat I want to point out here. Belinda and I were just talking before we came on about the luxury market, the higher end market. We consider the higher end luxury market $500,000 and above. There was a 50%, 49% increase in the number of homes sold over $500,000 in the last 6 months. So it's pretty, that market has really exploded. Even the ultra luxury, million, 1.3 million and above, we've seen basically doubling in the number of those homes selling. And we're going to get into predictions in a little bit, but I got a couple slides I just wanted to share with you guys that come from the couple different sources. This one I really like because what it's looking at is taking all these experts, Mortgage Bankers Association, National Association of Realtors, Zelman and Associates, Realtor.com, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, CoreLogic. These are all the big players at looking at real estate, residential real estate data in the country. And this is their predictions for home price appreciation. Even CoreLogic, which is the most pessimistic, is still projecting 3.3% home price appreciation in 2021. So really nobody's seeing any negatives. And after Fed Powell's talk yesterday, I think that people might even be a little bit more bullish, but we can talk about that later. And then a couple slides here from Dr. Hune. Lawrence Hune is our National Association chief economist. He's really a great person to follow. And he's just saying here, if home sales continue at the same pace of the first month this year, as buyers quickly snatched up virtually every new listing on the market, sales easily could have been 20% higher. I think that's the takeaway there. He says that because the demand is still so high, it's the only thing that's slowing down the market is the lack of supply. And go ahead and jump to the next one, John. And then another one from Dr. Hune is home sales could possibly reach 8 million if we had more inventory. Again, just kind of the same narrative that the demand is there, we just don't have the homes to sell. And so with that, I'm going to pass this over to Belinda Franco, our GAR president for 2021, and she's going to talk about the feet on the street and what we're seeing out there.
Thank you, Tico. Great information. You know, what does that mean for buyers? You know, that's a lot of stats, but we are working directly with home buyers. And what does that mean? I have a cute little graphic. You know, we need a little humor in our business. Okay. So we have to keep the cute little graphic basically was a cartoon family rushing to go see a property. And we have to keep that humor in this business. So what does that mean for buyers? As I was mentioning, it means that what's important for buyers is to be working with a realtor that can guide you through this process. I'd like to share a recent buyer experience. I had been working with a family that is a state cop. His wife has now become a homeschool teacher. That's not in her wheelhouse, but that's what she is now. They've bought and sold about 4 properties. We're under contract on the 4th property now. We should be closing at the end of next week, hopefully. And they were shocked when they started looking to buy an investment property for their in-laws that were going to come live in New Mexico from out of state. So they were excited about, they were intrigued by the interest rates. And they said, this is a great time. They had used me in the past. They reached out and they said, we have a very specific search criteria. And so we put that in and started looking at homes. It resulted in 0 homes available. So we expanded that search just a little bit. We got 2. We immediately scheduled to go see them. They were pending. So they immediately realized, okay, let's shift gears. Let's look at something a little bit different. They started sending me properties kind of outside of their search criteria, and they raised their price a little bit. And they would send me a list, and within 24 hours, the houses were pending already. So they said, okay, let's shift gears again. Let's look at a different way of doing this. And we were doing video tours. We were doing FaceTime videos. They were dropping everything to go look at houses. We'd get to the house and there's no overlapping appointments right now. You schedule a property and there's a line of people with their realtors waiting in cars, waiting on the street. And without those overlapping appointment times, it would cause this backup. We had to have COVID safe practices. We were masked up. We had sanitizing all the surfaces that we were touching. We were wearing gloves. We were getting beat out by buyers that were bringing cash, that we're having escalation clauses. We were trying everything under the sun to try to win some of these bids. They lost almost 12 homes, a dozen homes in about a 3-month period of time to buyers that were waiving appraisal contingencies, waiving inspection contingencies, coming in $30,000 over a list price on an escalation clause, and it just was incredible. So we were having to get really creative, and they were getting a little disheartened. And so part of our job is to stay positive and stay upbeat and really just navigate them through that process. Like I said, we are now under contract on one of the dozen homes that we had made an offer on. So that's positive news. The complications that we need to navigate right now, it's the appraisal challenges. We're coming in with some escalation clauses, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 above list price. So that can cause an appraisal challenge. Competing buyers waiving those appraisal contingencies and inspection contingencies. Buyers are being rushed through homes. So they're seeing homes that maybe isn't quite the right fit, but they're desperate. So they're putting offers on and then deciding to back out at the last minute. We're seeing more, fallout, and that's a complication. Another challenge is that sellers aren't willing to do any repairs. They're having buyers take the house as is because they know that they have a backup offer waiting. So those are some challenges that we're facing, boots on the ground, feet on the street, as Tio said. So, we have to explain early on in the process what is going to happen, manage those expectations as we've always done as realtors, and navigate this frenzied market, because that's really what it is. It's causing this frenzy. So I'm thankful that they've continued to trust me and that they followed some of my guidance, and we are now under contract. And that's just one example of many. Every realtor in this residential real estate market is dealing with that. So I'm going to pass it on to Kathy Colvin, who is our Southwest MLS president, and she's going to continue the discussion.
Thank you very much, Belinda. So touching on the economic impact of a typical home sale from what Tigo mentioned earlier, I think we have a chart up here. So over $72,000, as he mentioned, it's an astonishing figure that home sales are contributing to our economy. This figure covers income generated from the real estate industry, including mortgage, title companies, homeowners insurance, housing related expenditures, and new home construction. The latest figures, this one is from 2019. I called to get the latest figures. They indicate the real estate industry accounted for 18% of the gross state product in New Mexico in the third quarter of 2020. We don't have the first quarter stats for 2021 yet until the end of the month. So Belinda touched on things from the buyer's perspective. It's equally as challenging on the seller side. We, as realtors, we're having to time when we put our listings into the MLS because we know that for the next 48 to 72 hours, our phones are going to blow up. We hopefully have time to eat a meal and kiss our kids or grandkids goodnight. So it's been a really challenging process from the seller's perspective too. We're having to navigate and help our sellers figure out which is the best offer because we're seeing some very creative offers because buyers are trying to set their offer apart from the others. And having to create spreadsheets and things like that to go over each offer with our sellers. We're evaluating the financial strength of each buyer and managing the expectations of all the parties involved. It's also very tough as a listing broker to have to call all the other realtors who didn't win the bid, and that's tough because you only have one happy couple. It's like the Super Bowl, only one team wins, so only one buyer wins. So that part is challenging for us. Another few challenges that we're facing in our industry is affordable housing. That remains an issue that our state really needs to tackle. We're pricing the locals out, and that's never a good thing. Legislatively, we need to look at other states' successful affordable housing programs so we can meet this ongoing nationwide problem. Speaking of the legislature, luckily we were able to stop House Bill 19. That was the transfer tax. And we worked really hard. A big group of us together worked really hard to stop that. That would have really hurt our industry. We need to be prepared to fight that one again because I'm pretty sure it's coming our way. Another thing we need to keep an eye on is inflation. I don't know about you all, but I am seeing prices going up on just about everything. So on a regular basis, I'm asked, are we in a housing bubble? Despite the warning signs, all the data shows no. The market is quite different than it was in the 2000s. Some key factors that indicate the difference: housing supply. As we've been talking about, Tigo mentioned, Belinda mentioned, we are in a dire inventory shortage. In 2007, that was not the case. Housing demand. The mortgage industry fed into the crisis in 2007 and 2008, making it easier for buyers to obtain loans much higher than they could actually afford. That's not the case now. COVID is challenging homeowners to reevaluate if their current home fits their needs, driving more eager buyers into the market. So it makes good financial sense to buy a home. Equity. Sellers have equity in their homes. Nationwide, more than 38% of homeowners only own their homes free and clear. 38%, that's a lot. Another 18.7% have paid off over 50% of their mortgage. So boomers are aging in place. COVID is keeping some sellers from listing. Huge demand by buyers to escape dense cities to rural, suburban communities. Low interest rates, forbearance plans, and the 7 million single-family homes that have now become rentals. So you can see the difference from the mid-2000s. All indications say no. So therefore, I don't think we're in a housing bubble. Like I said, I'm asked pretty regularly, as I'm sure many of my realtor colleagues are. So on that note, I'll send this back to Mackenzie Bishop. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So, and I'll echo, a lot of what Kathy just said. Housing bubble gets thrown around a lot when you see escalating prices at the rate that we're seeing. What's unique about this situation is that in 2005, 2006, there was a lot of fake demand. There was a lot of, people buying houses that had no business buying houses. What's unique about this situation is while price is going up in the same way, it's driven more by a constrained supply. So when we hear about the challenges that that are going on, especially from the buying perspective, when it comes to trying to buy a home in a very constrained market. Whenever I hear challenge as an entrepreneur, I think of opportunity. And so, what that does is, demand is amazing right now. It's unprecedented. But what is the challenges are related to supply. So that's really where our industry can play a role and has an opportunity to play a role in really boosting supply. So with that, let's start the new home portion of our presentation today, and I'll hand it to Janice. Take it away.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning. Just kind of touching back a little bit from where we were last year. Last year we presented a few we call them impact numbers for the industry and the projections. So I wanted to take a look back at where we were and what we projected in 2020 versus where we are today. Under the guise of, 2020 was difficult. We had the pandemic, we had some significant job losses. Not every industry in our state was deemed essential, and some industries took a significantly harder hit than others. We have some economic uncertainty still. Certainly we saw a lot of political division that is unprecedented in our country and our nation's history. A lot of social unrest, and unfortunately, a lot of social isolation. Every age demographic, being at home, not being able to interact in a normal way with people, that's created some significant challenges for our country, for our state, and for our local market. So looking at some of those impact numbers that we discussed last year, the first one that I threw out last year that was a shock to everybody was 110. And those of you that were at the Sheraton last year remember that I indicated that the trend was the average lifespan for our children had reached 110 years old. And last year, pre-pandemic, we were thinking, okay, what does this mean for housing, and how do we serve that generation of young buyers that are up and coming? We also talked about getting 3,000 new vacant developed lots in the market to serve the housing need and to serve the housing demand. And the last thing we talked about last year was the months of supply on the resale side of the industry. That months of supply is a key indicator for new construction because we look to fill the gap in that supply chain equation. You may have seen it in Tigo's slide, but a healthy months of supply for our market is 5 to 6 months. So last year we were significantly undersupplied, and we're about to see where we are today. So the numbers for 2021, that life expectancy, unfortunately, through the pandemic has significantly reduced. It is now at 74 years old. For our youngsters. Any of you who are historians will know that that number is lower than the post-World War II life expectancy. So significant impact to our population as a nation and as a state. Vacant developed lots. So this year, unfortunately, we're only looking at being able to get 2,300 lots in the market. And we'll talk a little bit about that, and Carrie will go into that in a little bit more detail. And then as Tigo mentioned earlier, our months of supply on the resale side is 0.6. So the pressure's on, the challenge is on. Like Mac, I see challenge as opportunity. But how as a resale industry do we supplement, or I'm sorry, as a new construction industry, supplement that resale industry when months of supply is at 0.6? Well, unfortunately, last year when we were hoping to get 3,000 lots on the market to help supplement that demand, we were not successful in that. We were only able to get about 3/4 of those lots out to market, and reasons for that we'll let Carrie go into later, but it also has significantly impacted our ability to continue at the pace that we're used to, which is that 3,000 mark, which is why we've lowered that projection for 2021. So let's talk a little bit about the economy, right? The economy drives what we see in resale. It also drives what we see in new construction in terms of buyer profile and who's buying homes. Again, unfortunately, through the pandemic, both sides of the industry have lost a significant number of buyers. We end up seeing quite a few buyers from that restaurant, hospitality, tourism industry that is so big in our state. And with those folks still unable to get back to full employment, these employment numbers have really significantly impacted both sides of the industry. Now, Albuquerque job growth in general is back up to par with those jobs coming in really those essential industries. We can't wait for the day when, you know, our buyers in leisure and hospitality get back to full capacity and can enter the housing purchase market again. We are waiting for that day. So as we look into the next slide, John.
Okay.
As we continue to look at what is the economic upside and what does job growth look like for the Albuquerque market, we have 4 really great sectors that are helping promote buyers into both the resale and new construction side. Facebook down in Los Lunas is booming. It's now estimated that that construction project will be extended another 6 to 8 years. Those folks, while we initially thought the construction teams were going to be temporary, it looks like they're going to be here for quite a while. And so that is not only great for our economy and great to have that economic impact in Los Lunas, New Mexico, but it's also great for us on both sides of the housing market to be able to supply those individuals with housing needs. Netflix down, oops, sorry, John. Netflix down at Mesa del Sol is another great job creator for our market. Netflix brings a wide variety of income for those different positions that they have out there, and they're looking to expand their presence in our market. So a lot of great things coming from Netflix. Amazon is newly under construction on the Albuquerque west side. Amazon looks to bring about 1,000 jobs to the market in their 2.5 million square foot facility once completed. So with Amazon, similar to Facebook, we get kind of the double win from a job growth perspective. We get the job creation on the construction side, and then we get the permanent jobs when the facility opens up. And then last but not least, our partners at Intel and Rio Rancho continue to find ways to be innovative and bring technology to our state. They are in the process of securing facilities, retooling their fab, and gearing up for the production of a new chip. And if history serves us well, we can only hope that what they've done in the past by bringing new technology to the area will again promote job growth within our state. So other things that are impacting housing demand. And it's really impacting demand from various sectors. The first is green building, and the green building aspect impacts the speed at which and the cost at which we can introduce new product to the market. Green buildings, just recently, both the state and the city of Albuquerque have implemented and adopted the 2018 IECC, which is the International Energy Conservation Code. Most of the requirements within that code are very obtainable for builders to achieve. Many builders were already probably implemented 95% of those construction methods. There are 2 key items within that new code that will make it more costly for new homes to hit the market. In the state of New Mexico, that code, CID-wide, that code takes effect next week, March 25th. And then in the city of Albuquerque, that code is already active. They adopted that code effective March 1st. The items specifically that get into the cost side have to do with fresh air exchange. So it's a double whammy. Number one, you have to tighten up the construction of the home, make sure that it's airtight and sealed. But at the same time, you have to introduce fresh air into the home, which is it's great for all of us, right? We have to have that fresh air. So the combination of those 2 things, we estimate will add $3,000 to $5,000 per home in cost. So certainly that goes to how can we get obtainable housing out to buyers in the market. Kind of springboarding right into that affordability sector. Well, it's not just green building. We also have lumber increases. Lumber is the highest it's been in almost 20 years right now. And every other commodity on the market that goes into building a new home is at about a 20% increase. So it goes from lumber, concrete, anything metal. Insulation is not only in higher price point, but it's in short supply. So the insulation in our homes that we're putting in now is really in short supply. And then, you know, finally, we have supply chain issues just with getting supplies to the area. Retire New Mexico. New Mexico is a great location and destination for retirees. I think both on the resale side and the new construction side, we're seeing a tremendous amount of retirees wanting to locate to our state. So that puts a little bit of an increase in demand. Thankfully, we have some appropriated funds through legislature to continue to market to and attract those retirees to the state of New Mexico. It's now just a matter of being able to perform on that promise for them. Next slide, John. Okay, so as we talk about challenges, 2020 was difficult, right? But as the challenge becomes an opportunity, what does that mean for new home builders? It means that we've had to reinvent how we do business. How do we drive traffic to our model homes? How do we host customers in our model homes with COVID safe practices? We've had to reinforce relationships with our realtor partners, reinforce relationships with our suppliers and our vendors, and really reinforce relationships with our existing buyers. We are having to highlight what that common ground looks like. You know, it's about setting expectations and how do we just make sure that everybody is on the same playing field in terms of expectation for what we're about to see. Home builders have had to pivot, right? We have short lot supply, we have buyers knocking down our doors, and we can only build as fast as we can build. The buyer demand in our market is very strong. Tigo, Belinda, and Kathy have all indicated that that's a very strong point in our market, and we do our best to fill the gap on the resale side, but it's pretty tricky for us right now. And then, you know, fortunately, the underlying economy in Albuquerque is pretty strong. We do have those sectors that we're still, you know, waiting for them to bolster up, but overall, the underlying economy is very strong. So just a quick little statistic for you to show how constrained we are on the new construction side in terms of how we're outpacing different things. Our annual starts right now are represented on the blue line. And so in 2020, our starts did outpace closings, but we anticipate seeing that statistic flop here in 2021. You know, our closings will kind of continue to rise to the point that we meet supply, and then our starts will start to fall as we start to have fewer lots in the pipeline. I know it's a story you all have heard for many, many years, really since 2010, that our lot supply in the market was very short. And it has been, and that's going to continue to hinder us moving forward. With that, to talk about that lot supply in more specific detail is our development expert, Carrie Plant.
Thanks, Janice. Good morning, everybody. Just kind of listening to everybody here talk about some of the challenges that were bred, maybe even pre-COVID. We're constantly trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver up lots to meet our builders' needs for new homes and lots for those. And, you know, as we went into COVID, the first couple of months, you know, it was all doom and gloom. We didn't really know what was going to happen. It was a time of uncertainty for many people, including us, you know, trying to figure out, are we going to be permanently working from home? How do we keep our teams together? How do we continue collaborating to get to what the end result's going to be? But we quickly found out, you know, a couple months into that the home building was going to continue. I mean, our industry, the fact that we were deemed essential really made us pull together and kind of be wowed at the beginning of this. And we were faced with challenges of Now what do we do to keep up? We're not stopping. The wheels continue to go faster and faster. So then we were lamenting, how do we get our jobs done? You know, how do we deliver lots to builders to meet their needs? So as we were sort of complaining about now our challenges is how do we keep up? You know, people often say, well, what are you complaining about, right? You know, if developing is so easy, everybody would be doing it. So that kind of gives us a renewed sense of what do we do to develop these lots? How do we get buildable lots on the ground for these builders? And so part of that is we needed to start looking at, you know, in the old days when we were delivering lots, we went out and built, right? We had a master plan. We knew what we were going to be building, various sizes of lots, and it was sort of like having a product on a shelf to where builders were just buying whatever we had. What has changed as far as the dynamic goes and current home builder or home buyers needs is we had to start asking ourselves now, what is the end product? What do these home buyers want? So we sort of had to work it backwards. What can a home buyer afford? What things do they want out of their home? What size of the home does that look like? And we back into what lot sizes we're going to be providing. So it sort of flip-flopped on us as to we had to be creative now, and so we have to design for what these builders are wanting, which takes us into some of our challenges as far as design, getting these particular lots entitled. How do we work within the confines of current zoning? Does the end product require us to go into rezones, which, you know, you have to really work with municipalities to get there. So there's talking back to, I guess, what Janice was kind of pointing out on the relationship side of things. It's more important every day that we maintain these relationships with the government entities and municipalities, your contractors and suppliers. It's the same on the land side. But, you know, it's creating the foundation for what's going to be built that is really important. Another challenge is with these great jobs coming to the market and these big industry partners, Amazon, Netflix, these big guys, that sort of puts a drain on the contractor pool that we use to build our lots. Everybody's spread thin, so meeting schedules is very difficult. In the old days, we could, you know, crank out a little subdivision in 4 or 5 months, and we're seeing that time is almost doubling. And what it's doing to the home builders is making them, it's sort of challenging them to say, how do we get on these lots sooner? They're having to prairie build. They may not have temporary power. They might be building with generators and water buffaloes and not having access to the basic stuff that they're used to start putting up their homes. And then cost increases. You know, Janice went over the supplies, and that's going to continue to be an issue. So, you know, as in looking back, when we start kind of comparing and contrasting where our lot costs are, I think it's safe to say that in the last 10 years, our cost to develop a lot is increasing by 35 to 45%. Next slide, please. Another big issue, so inventory and this big gap. You know, we've always heard from the builders, we're looking for, where is that gap going to be? When does it come along? What does the number look like? You know, we have our builders committing to lots, and just speaking from an AMREP perspective, they're committing to lots that are being delivered in 2022 and 2023. So they're really having to have the foresight of where they think the market's going to be, and is it risky for them to be committing to lots that far out? But the trend is that there is a growing need. We're not able to meet that supply, and they're gapping out now. So, you know, whereas before we were thinking we're keeping up and being successful, we are seeing that gap, and we are trying to figure out ways to fill that. But with the challenges to overcome, it's how do you kind of continue the wheels in motion? Where are we going to be building these lots? You know, in Albuquerque, the available land to build on that's really, I guess, I don't want to say easy to develop, but where you don't have the time constraints of rezones and whatnot, is dwindling. So the place where people are going to be looking is Rio Rancho, Santa Fe, down south, Los Lunas and Belen. And I can say from our perspective in Rio Rancho, we're increasing lot production to the best of our ability by about 40% over what we did last year, and it's still not enough. When you get into some of these other municipalities, Santa Fe, which we've just gone into, we're finding that it's very difficult, a lot of time involved. And I think that some of these challenges are things that we weren't quite ready for. So we're challenging ourselves on a daily basis to figure out how can we get these lots quicker, and what's it going to take. But also, are the municipalities in these areas ready for us? Are they ready for all of these homes to hit their market? So, back to the relationship thing again, is how can they help us? How can the municipalities help us to continue to build the communities and bring home buyers in that are contributing to the communities? So how all this sort of plays into the home side, land is important. It is the foundation, and it really comprises a big piece of the home price. And Denise, I'm going to bounce back over to her and she'll discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, so we put together just a little visual for you on what does it cost to deliver an approximate $300,000 home on the market. And so current costs are $70,000 for land. Taxes and fees, which include everything from the building permit, gross receipts taxes, all of those municipal fees that we have to pay, approximately $30,000. So if you're doing the math, yes, that's 10%. And then sticks and bricks, just what does it take to get a home built on site? It's about $150,000. And then lastly, because we are very friendly to our realtor partners, approximately $15,000 in commissions. So that is what it takes just to get a house on the market and out to the buyer at about a $300,000 price point. And we're striving for that, but even that $300,000 price point can sometimes be challenging to obtain. With that, we really thank you guys for joining us today. I'm going to turn it back over to Mackenzie so that he can get us to the finish line.
Thanks, you guys. Well, so we have a fair amount of time here for Q&A, and we've had a few come in, and I also have some questions that I think make a lot of sense given the context of what we've talked about. So the first one, we got a question from Dave Campbell. He's very keen on what we can do in the Albuquerque area. And David said, to what extent can upscale multifamily apartments absorb some of the demand, especially for young singles or young families and retirees? So who would like to take that in terms of where they think apartments and more multifamily housing plays a role in the overall solution of what we're trying to accomplish?
I think all three of us over here could take a stab at that question. And it is a great question, David, because let's make a distinction, and Kathy said this briefly, but let's make a distinction between affordable housing and housing affordability. Right now, housing actually affordability is very good with 3% interest rates. And if you look at it from a trend, over time, I think right now the average is like 17% of median income is toward housing, which is very good historically. I think it's been as high as 23, 24, 25%. So the challenge in our market is we're running out of $200,000 houses to sell. And I really think probably in the next year, that's probably one of the things, the trends that's going to happen is that's going to be a thing of the past in the Albuquerque market. I don't see them coming back. So the affordable housing question is something that I think our whole community needs to look at because they're just not there. We're going to get to a point where we really don't have a lot of what we call entry-level homes. I think multifamily is one solution for that, just because what we heard what it costs just before they even do anything on the lot, they've already $100,000 into that property for a single family home. Now, I think Kathy and Belinda, you guys maybe can back me up on this, but the thing is, we don't see a lot of demand for people wanting multifamily, multi-unit housing. People want their single family home in the suburbs. I mean, that's what people want. It's funny, there was a narrative a few years ago that all the millennials were going to want multifamily, urban housing. They were going to want to live in the city and walk everywhere and Uber everywhere. And they wouldn't want to own a car and they wouldn't want to live in the suburbs. Well, guess what? All the millennials are buying in the suburbs and they love it, right? And they're just like us boomers, and they are happy with that. So that's, it's not a great answer, but that's my feeling on it.
So I can elaborate a little bit. Some of the other states in the country have a lot of affordable housing projects. In Utah, in Salt Lake City, and in Utah, the entire state, they're doing some zoning changes. They're talking to the planning and zoning in their communities to see about changing zoning to put up affordable housing and to put up more dense multi-unit projects. But like Tigo said, we don't see a big demand for them. So I think maybe that's going to come to fruition, but we're not seeing it yet. I'm thinking in the next couple of years that may change. But yeah, a lot of people don't really like the don't like that being in close quarters and hearing their neighbor. They feel like that's apartment living, and they want to go single family route.
So as a follow-up question to that, and you hit a lot of the points that I think, a lot of the questions that we're getting allude to, but how has COVID affected buyer tastes and preferences in terms of either area or size of home or what they're looking for? I'd be curious to get your guys' perspective from the front line.
So what I'm seeing, how COVID is affecting buyers, a lot of people are working from home. They are homeschooling from home, and they're just spending a lot more time. So they want a yard, they want an extra office, they want a bonus room, a flex room. They're just wanting more space. So we're seeing that buyer need and that buyer want increase, and they're just spending more time at home. So I think Kathy has a couple things to add as well.
Right, we're seeing a lot of my buyers, everybody wanted an open floor plan forever. And then now they, I hear my kid, doing their studies from across the dining room. And so now people are wanting, more home offices. They want a room for a gym because nobody, the gyms were closed. So it's kind of changed the dynamics. They don't care if it's in the outskirts, so long as they have good broadband, because they're going to a meeting or going into the office maybe once a week. Or, we have people moving here. I know the big tech companies have told their employees, my niece works for one of them, that they can work from home indefinitely. And so they're saying, well, then why am I here in crowded California? So that's why we're seeing that. If they may have to fly in once a month to a meeting, and everybody's figured out we can Zoom. And so it's really changed the dynamic a lot from what buyers want.
So to flip it to the new home side, and thank you guys so much. I think that was very, very insightful. Talk about the supply chain. We have a couple of questions about lumber and commodity prices, build times. Talk a little bit about what's going on out there on the front lines in terms of getting a house built in 2021.
Sure. Wonderful questions. You guys, when I started my career 27 years ago, the build time for a home was 90 days. Right? 90 days in and out, get it done. We're looking more at 180 days now. So it is more than doubled. Little things on supply chain, such as windows. Just about any window manufacturer that builders use today has a minimum of a 6-week lead time. Well, the time that it takes from the time you start your home to the time you need your windows is about 3.5, 4 weeks. So we see houses consistently sitting on the job site waiting for different materials. Plumbing fixtures are another great one, right? Those come at the end, and that's when the buyers are most excited to get into their home. Plumbing fixtures have such a lengthy lead time that even when we order them at the beginning of construction, almost 6 months later, they're still not a full package for a single home at the time that we're trying to wrap up that home and deliver it to our customers. So all of those supply chain issues just in material arrivals are challenging. We see that through every product spectrum: doors, hardware, I mentioned earlier, insulation. We see it on floor material. I know a lot of builders have started to migrate to more American-made product, but even when we have American-made product, the supply chain from Atlanta to Albuquerque is still somewhat constricted, right? What happens in Albuquerque is we're a dead-end drop. Okay, anybody coming in from LA to bring in tile or Atlanta to bring in carpet, they're coming to Albuquerque with a full load, but they don't have anything going out. So then that leads to not only delays in product arriving, but it leads also to price increases because we end up suffering a surcharge to send an empty truck back to where it came from. And by golly, on roof tiles, all of my roofing folks out there, God forbid it's orange season because the trucks just get caught up in orange season and we end up with no roof tile coming into the market. They're all tied up in Arizona trying to get oranges out to the local market. So little things that you wouldn't think of that impact our industry impact us significantly and in significant ways. And it's been challenging to manage home buyer expectations with costs and build times exceeding even my history in this industry. It's very difficult to continue to talk to buyers about delays in construction because materials aren't here. Most buyers automatically assume that we just haven't done our part and we didn't order things on time, and that's just simply not the case. And then lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the delays that happen to us that are completely outside of our control when different entities change process, whether it's PNM and New Mexico Gas changing their process, and then we're waiting to get to final service to the home. I can't underscore the amount of delays that all of us builders have had this winter when we're trying to get heat into a home so that we can appropriately install tile and carpet, and we can't get heat to the home because of a process that was changed. And now, they're backed up with labor and whatnot, trying to get permanent utility service to the home. So that's been a challenge as well.
Great. So, there's several questions in here, and Tigo alluded to it as well. With rising rates, I think that's the elephant in the room. Right now, affordability and accessibility is there because rates are at unprecedented all-time lows. But as rates increase, which I think is inevitable, given the inflationary pressures and the economic conditions that are starting to unfold as we recover from COVID, how do you guys see rising rates affecting buyer behavior? So are they buying smaller houses? Are they buying townhomes? Are they changing their tastes? Are they driving further? What's going to be the first to give, and how are buyers going to adjust to a rising rate environment?
I've heard a few stories, and I know we have a lot of lenders out there, and they could probably answer this question even better than myself, but I do hear a few stories on it. And, even going from 2.75 to 3, which we've done recently, I mean, there was a big move in mortgage rates recently, although they were, again, 2.75 to 3, 3.25. There's a bunch of what ifs out there, Mac, and 2020 is good. 2021, I should just forget that other year. 2021 is I think the year of the what ifs, right, in our market. Obviously, interest rates is going to be something we're going to have to watch because there's a lot of questions about, okay, if we get up to average 4, 4.25, how much is that going to tamp down demand? And most of the housing economists are saying that will slow down demand. In the dirty little secret that nobody wants to say, and I'm going to say it, is we could actually use a little bit of slowdown. I know that's probably not a good thing to say, but this market, if we continue at 10, 11, 12% appreciation for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that's not good. That's when we really start getting in this whole, bubble thing. And nobody is seeing a bubble this year. We're going to have to just wait and see. And we haven't talked about the millennial demographic and that huge cohort of home buyers that are just now entering. That's going to play out for another 3 or 4 years. So if you're talking about the future of the housing and the housing economy and how it plays out, you got to look at demographics and you got to look at that millennial group. And so are they going to not buy because interest rates are now 4 versus 3? When it's time to buy, it's time to buy, right? So that'll be interesting. Obviously, inventory is going to be another thing that we just have to watch. I don't know if that answered the question, Mac, but man, there's so many what ifs out there, and you have to look at all of it, and there's so much of it to look at.
You know, that's great information to you. What I'm seeing is a lot of buyers, some younger buyers. I have a couple of first-time home buyers that they are expanding their search criteria. They're deciding to go into a townhome versus a detached home for right now. They are buying the house that they've been renting for the last year and a half, because a lot of landlords are wanting to sell right now. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of just being flexible. And I think that driving outside of Albuquerque a little bit, whether it's the East Mountains or it's Los Lunas or Rio Rancho, the greater Albuquerque area it's a big area. So when somebody thinks that they want to stay in the Northeast Heights, they're maybe looking at the Northwest. They're maybe looking across the river. They're just expanding their ideas. So they're not stuck in just one spot anymore.
So there's a lot of questions about product mix as prices go up and as rates increase. How do we adjust our product? How do we change, how we're developing lots, the size of lots, the type of product? If we had a magic wand, right, it would be easy to solve this. The reality is we deal with regulations and we deal with neighborhood associations. I think a lot of the people on the call today are, that's their business. Carrie, maybe tell us a little bit about if we wanted to do more dense product to really get that affordability, what's that look like? Is that even feasible? Is that even possible? And then also as a follow-up question, you on your slide, you talked a little bit about where the new lots are coming. And I saw Albuquerque wasn't on there. So we've talked about that in past presentations, but maybe elaborate a little bit on why Albuquerque is not, going to be a major point of emphasis for future growth.
Okay, so, well, Albuquerque wasn't on the slide because, the major area in Albuquerque would really just be Mesa del Sol, I think, where there's a lot of opportunity. We, from AMREP's perspective, have just landed in Albuquerque doing a project in the North Valley, and that was through Bernalillo County. The majority of what we do today is in Sandoval County and Rio Rancho. And being the original, founding father of Rio Rancho, you could say, we were the original land purchaser. Back in the day, the vision was we're going to go and plat, all of these over 90,000 acres into single family residential, half acre, 1 acre lots. So, we can certainly point back to antiquated platting being an issue. The way that Rio Rancho has grown over the years has been not really from a center and out, but it's been very sporadic and in different areas around the city. So it hasn't been sort of a contiguous growth pattern. So what we do is when we create our master plans, we come up with what we think is going to be the most, the most sense for a particular area. And it's going to include a combination of different zone types. Once you've already sort of stated, this is what we want to develop, and it could be a mix of, R1s, or R3s, R4s. It really varies depending on the location. Once you've already sort of established that and people know what's out there, it doesn't really lend itself to going back and saying, hey, this vision, we've had to tweak this a little bit. The demand has changed. It doesn't quite align with what we foresaw as being our master plan, kind of a grand plan at the time. So we have to go back to the municipality and request rezones. We do that based on market demand. And we also look for the most flexibility. So when we go back and say, I want to change, for example, from an R1 zoning down to an R3 zoning, which gives us smaller lots, there's sort of a stigma attached to that with it being an affordable lot, an 8 type of a lot. And that's not the case. When we talk about an affordable lot, it's your blue collar workers. We've got nurses, we've got police, we've got firemen. These people fall within the criteria of needing a smaller lot to be that sub $300,000 home. And the way to achieve that is to get a smaller lot. They simply can't afford a home that's on an R1 lot. When we go for these rezones and we think we're doing the right thing and trying to meet our builders' demands, you have single family R1 lots, large lots, half acre lots, and while people recognize the need for these more affordable lots, they don't want it built next to them. Find somewhere else in the city to do it. And there's just, it's a challenge. It definitely is a challenge. And I think we as a community need to be more receptive to finding ways to home these people. I mean, most of our community is blue collar workers, that I can say for Sandoval County and for Rio Rancho anyways. So it really takes a good relationship with the municipality. It takes people being on your side. It's not just the big bad developer coming in and, you know, trying to grab that extra dollar. That's not always the case.
Thanks, Carrie. I lost my train of thought.
Man, train went off the track. Yeah.
No, I'm ready. I got
Okay.
it. So we talk, jobs and houses are almost always connected, right? Historically, you know, there's all kinds of metrics and jobs lead to this much. When we looked at the slide, jobs are just now getting back to their pre-COVID levels, but demand has been astronomical. So the real question is, where are the buyers coming from? You know, who's buying houses right now? What types of buyers are buying houses? With job losses like they've been, you know, you wouldn't see these types of shifts historically. So question to all of you guys is, where are these buyers coming from? Are they out of state? Are they retirees? Tell us a little bit about where the buyers are coming from.
I'll tackle that one, Mac. I have buyers coming from all over the country, from the big cities, from California. I also have people that have lived here before. Sometimes they were stationed in the military. They loved our weather and they think we're a nice size city, so they're coming back. So we're seeing some of that. And then we have a lot of local buyers, a lot of first time buyers. They maybe went off to college, they're coming back. They have good jobs. So many of them who went off to college and have good jobs, now they can come back and be near mom and dad and help take care of them. So we're seeing that. And a lot of people moving to be near family. If they have family here in the Albuquerque area, they are moving to be near family. I think COVID really focused on family and who we can count on. And so we're seeing a lot of that. Belinda?
And that's actually exactly what I was going to say is what I'm seeing our buyers are wanting to come back. If New Mexico was home before and they had moved away for a job or family reasons, they're coming back to be near family again. And we're seeing some people wanting to buy bigger homes to live with family to take care of an elder in their home. And the other part that I'm seeing is a lot of younger people with the stimulus money that they're putting it to the side and wanting to put a down payment on a house. And I'm getting a lot of those calls. And that's, you know, talking about the affordable housing. It's tough for these first-time homebuyers when we get these calls and they say, you know, I'm qualified up to 150. You almost cringe because you know it's going to be a challenge. But we're up for the challenge on the resale side for sure.
That's kind of the question is, where are these people coming from? Where are all these buyers? Where is all this demand coming from? And I know Stephen Hamway at the Journal, who does a great job, by the way, Stephen, if you're out there, you do a great job reporting on real estate, so we appreciate you. But he asked me this last time I talked to him, and we don't know. The thing is, we don't really have a data set that says that person that bought that house, they were from here. That person that bought that house, they were from here. That data doesn't exist. So all we have to go on is what we kind of see. And you know, I have a large team, so we see a lot of transactions. And it's everywhere. But what most of it that we see are local people either moving up or first-time home buyers. That's a big percentage of it. Yes, we're getting a lot of people coming in, but we've always seen a lot of people coming in, you know, for the base, for you know, people relocating for the base, or for whatever reason. We've seen a lot of that. I think the bigger question is, a lot of these jobs that are coming in aren't necessarily the higher end paying jobs, right? And I think that's a little thing that, you know, it's great, we've got all these jobs, but if that person can only afford a $200,000 or $250,000 house, that's going to be a challenge for our market if they want to become a homeowner. So again, I'm just going to go right back to that because I think that's the biggest challenge. I'm very optimistic, and I don't want to sound, you know, Debbie Downer on our housing market, because I think it's going to be very strong. It's just that entry level market is going to be a little bit more challenging.
Great. Well, I think I'll wrap it up with kind of an end question, and we may have time for one tag along. So I guess the magic question is, where do we go from here? And I want to give every panelist an opportunity to answer that question. But looking forward through the rest of the year and as we go into 2022, what do you anticipate, or what do you expect for your business and for our industry? Who wants to go first?
Oh, man, you guys are gonna start with me? I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier, which is there's a lot of what ifs out there. One thing we haven't even talked about is the forbearance. I'm calling it the forbearance overhang, which is, there's, I think we're down to about 3 million people in the country that are on a forbearance program, which the thing about that is that didn't exist in 2008, 2009. So the government intervention in the housing market is actually been very, very strong this time around. We learned a lot of lessons from 2008, 9, 10, right? And so that it's a good thing. They're going to have to see how that plays out this year. So I think that's going to be one of the things to watch. The thing is, most of those people, I believe the number I saw, Kathy hit on this earlier, but 90% of homeowners today have at least 10% or more equity in their home, which means most people, even if they're on a forbearance plan, even if they're going to be forced to sell, they're going to be an equity sale. So they're going to be able to just sell the home and move on, and we're not going to be dealing with the quote foreclosure crisis. So I'll leave it at that, because I think that was an important point to get out. Thanks, Tim.
So where do we go from here? I love what Max said. I know Janice said it as well about challenges being opportunities, and we absolutely have a lot of opportunities. I would like to say that, continue to raise the professional bar for the residential real estate side, work collaboratively with the new construction, and keep moving forward. We need to think outside the box when we're representing our buyers and sellers, and just continue to adapt.
I think we need to realize that Albuquerque's been discovered. Locals feel the prices have skyrocketed, but we're still much more affordable than the other Western cities. So when out-of-state buyers are comparing Albuquerque with other places to move, look at what we have: our weather, our food and beer. My husband says we have the best beer around. Our international airport, our lack of natural disasters, our culture and diversity are a huge draw. So even if interest rates rise a bit, I anticipate we're in for a wild ride in residential real estate. So buckle up.
Janice.
So where do we go from here? I think the key for new home construction is partnership, partnership, partnership. We will not survive this if we try and do the Wild West on our own. Partnerships have to be at an association level. They have to be builder to builder, developer to builder, and then trade partner to builder. We've got to make sure that on all fronts, everybody is keeping a keen eye out for cost so that we can do what we can to minimize that expense for our buyers. And then partnership with the municipalities. That can't be underscored. The way that we will be successful in residential construction is by maintaining and, in some instances establishing, but certainly maintaining those greater partnerships throughout. And lastly, customer service, right? We have to provide a great service to our customer. We have to remember that we're the experts in building, and while we do this every day and it's uncharted a little bit for us, even more so for them, that we've got to make sure that we're setting good expectations and that we're guiding them through this process that is just so very different than it ever has been before.
So to sort of piggyback, I guess, on what Janice is saying, is it really is the relationships and understanding the needs of everybody that we work with every day. One of the things I think with the economic development side of things is we have these big businesses coming, and one of the panelists said the other day, Albuquerque has been discovered, and I thought that was a really great statement to say Albuquerque and the metro area has been discovered. We are getting attention, but we need to be able to have places for these people to live that are following these businesses come into town. So we need to continue to, out of every challenge that we face every day, find the opportunity in how to conquer those challenges, shorten build times, try to keep the best control on costs that we can, and not just kind of take things in stride. So it's going to take banding together and finding our strengths.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate all the input and all the insight. Huge thank you to all of our viewers. We got a ton of questions, which I love. That means people are engaged. We got a lot of questions we weren't even able to get to. So feel free to email us or shoot us those questions directly if you really like to get some more perspective and we weren't able to get to them. So I think the synopsis is demand is unbelievable. It's unprecedented. Supply is a challenge, and there are other challenges, but like we talked about, those are opportunities as well. And I think those opportunities, we can seize upon those. Janice talked about partnership and collaboration. It is going to take a village to fix this problem and to overcome these challenges. And that's us as an industry. That's us with the real estate community. That's us with developers on delivering land. But it's also, as we mentioned, it comes back to the municipalities. If we can't get lots and product approved that our buyers want, we're going to have this problem continue to be a chronic problem. So we all have to get in and figure this out and have the tough conversations, make the tough decisions. We have to do it. So with that being said, we're excited about the partnership. We're glad you guys were able to be here. We're excited to do this next year in person. New normal is coming, and hopefully it's a lot like the old normal. So huge thanks to NAIOP for having us. Huge thanks to all the viewers. Thank you guys, Gar, your representatives, for being here. We love the improved collaboration and partnership. Hope to continue to build and foster those connections. And yeah, with that being said, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Westway, Fidelity, and then GAR, and obviously the HBA. So thank you guys so much for being with us this morning. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And Scott, I'm going to hand it back over to you to bring us to a close, sir.
Thanks, Mac. I appreciate it. Guys, great energy, fantastic information, wonderful presentation. Thank you very much, Mackenzie. John, thanks very much for pulling this together. Janice, Tigo, Kathy, Belinda, Carrie, thank you very much, guys. Great day. And I know our 105 people that joined our call this morning are very excited and feel very informed. So thanks again. Before we say goodbye to everybody and wish everybody a happy day, again, let's talk about the golf tournament coming up on the 29th. Bob Feinberg's moderating the drought seminar on the 30th. And again, April 26th is the legislative review. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks for inviting us and bringing us along.
Sweet. Good job, guys.
Good job, ladies.
Not muted
Talk
yet.
to them.
Not muted yet.
Garcia, thank you. Good program.
Thanks, man. Give it to Mac and the crew. Also to Kent, thank you so much for behind the scenes.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You did a great job.
We'll see ya.
Yeah, the broadcast is over.